Welcome to CoBB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan.
Like this, Sharan.
Mm-hmm.
For some time, I think we had lost that sting where Sharan's rant seemed like it is the thing of the past. But now Sharan is back, and how? Right? So,
In my defense, it's
becoming
not my rant.
whose rant is it?
The people I've been talking to. I'm ranting on their
Okay.
behalf.
That's what you've always been doing. That's a very old trick in everybody's book. My friend wants to know.
Mm.
Okay, so tell me, why are we talking about bullying by QCOM?
So I talk to a lot of founders, and off and on you hear how they're struggling with the margins with this QCOM and modern trade also. But this last weekend or something, I spoke to like 7 founders, and all of them had like really crazy problems with quick commerce. And they feel like they're being bullied. They don't know what to do. So I'll tell you the problems, right? One starts with exorbitant listing fees. Then there are payment terms which are crazy high. I think 60 days the minimum they sign up for. And even after 120 days, they don't get the payment. And when they push for payment, they said, do you want PO or payment? And then people take up the PO instead of the payment, which because you want more top line growth. You're under pressure for growth.
Yeah.
And they mandate the amount of marketing spends that have to be spent on the platform. And a couple of them had this horror story where they were not in charge of the platform marketing spends that they were budgeting for. The buyer would take it and buyer would allocate it whenever the buyer felt needed. So one guy said, suddenly they said they've spent 5 lakhs of money in 2 days on the platform. I don't even know why. I don't even know how they spent it. But I'm receiving a note saying that that's been spent.
Okay.
So that kind of stuff. And finally, when they say, okay, I want to pull out, I don't want to supply anymore, I'm losing money. Then they get like, what one guy had 80% of his outstanding payment returned to him as damaged stock. Because food that had never left the DC to the dark stores has just come back to him as expired products.
Okay. This is difficult. Okay. So I've never heard so many issues and problems with QCOM. What I do read, however, in newspapers is that QCOM is booming. It is growing significantly faster than any other trade in India. They're dominating the whole scene. It is helping entrepreneurs reach newer markets, get traction, make distribution more democratic, as they call it. I don't know how to reconcile these.
See, this is not something new. So you and I have been around at the beginning of modern trade in India, right?
Yeah.
Now, we had almost very, very similar issues then too. So I remember I was in Henkel then, and there was stock in the depot of Big Bazaar, and there was no stock in the stores.
Okay.
So it just wasn't getting dispatched. There was a system error. I would go sit with my buyer. Guy says, that's not my job. It's the replenishment team's job. So how do I get them to do it? But the system is recording my stock. So I'm not getting any POs. And what's happening? The system has to record sales. Only then will I get a reorder. What the system thinks is that there is stock of Henko in Big Bazaar, but there is no sale. Therefore, there's no reorder happening. So this was me as an ASM there. So these are troubles that you had to circumvent. And food, though, it was complete chaos. Now, what happens is when modern trade was starting up, it was new to a lot of the people who were working there. There were very few people who had seasoned in modern trade within the system. So their ability to make up for the operations was very low. As much as the top line they wanted to grow, the senior management was pushing, the operations takes time to catch up. In quick commerce, it is a slightly different issue where operations are struggling to catch up, but there's so much pressure from the investors. There is social pressure, very, very demanding customers. And the only thing that gets hidden away is your back-end operations. That's the only place you don't get a bad name. And if your suppliers are bad-mouthing you, you can very well stop buying from them and those supplier will not have an outlet on quick commerce anymore. So that is why this is happening. So what most of these guys do, right? The retailers, they don't make money on the large brands. The large brands bring traffic. So incidentally, when I moved from Henkel to Cadbury, most of these issues vanished because Henkel wasn't a very important player in the market at that time.
Yeah.
Cadbury was. And Cadbury was given its due. So if Cadbury wanted
Sure.
something, it would get done.
Sure.
What they do is they look at the large players as the traffic drivers, because if there is no Cadbury, entire chocolate category goes for a toss. So you will not mess with Cadbury, but you will mess with a smaller player. And that's what's happening, right? So they look at the large brands to drive traffic and the smaller brands to make up for the margin or get their profitability through. Now, there are a few startups which have done well on quick commerce. We speak about Beyond Snack, right? He's done really well, Manas. There are a few other brands that have done really well on quick commerce because they started early. So you deliver on the early brands and you loot the laggards.
There's some serious allegations, huh?
When I say loot the laggards, they become your cash cows. So the early ones set your gatekeeper margin, and they are the ones who test your system. So they become ingrained with the shopper's habit. The next guy comes in is only going to take share from the consumer. So he will pay a higher margin because you already have the traffic. He's not bringing any traffic to you. The new brand that's coming into a quick commerce platform is leveraging the existing traffic. So he has to pay more. That is the model. I'm just using harsher terms, but same with Walmart also, same with Amazon.
So fair. I get the picture. There are two things in what you said, Sharan, and I just wanted to unpack that. First thing you spoke about, when you were at Henkel, you saw this problem in replenishment, etc. You never faced that with Cadbury. So I'm just assuming that it was possibly a phase of time. I don't imagine any of these channels creating problems for smaller brands. Rather, their business model, I think, is about incentivizing the smaller brands to get on the platform and be discovered. Only then they remain relevant. The larger brands are already discovered. They're only providing access which they can get otherwise also.
That's actually a good point. That's how it was sold to the smaller companies.
Yeah. I thought that this will be part of that model. So I'm assuming that the systems are not different from large and small brands. The other side of the equation, I think, Sharan, is also about, all of this is about supply and demand, right? So it's all about commerce, how commerce works.
Absolutely.
So you're a big brand, they're not able to arm twist you as much. They need you as much you need them. And then, like you said, that, and therefore possibly the early movers possibly got their due. When you're trying to leverage what the traffic that they have on their platform, you will have to pay the price.
Absolutely.
Justified, non-justified, I don't know. But
that's the rule of the jungle, right? So you answered your question yourself, because if Henco was not dispatched from the DC to the store, no customer is going to walk away. If Surf is not dispatched from the DC to the store, people will walk away. So that is why, because people in operations are also full with work to do. So there are priorities that they make. And that's why I said, if Cadbury wasn't available in a store, that they would seriously lose business. But if Nestle chocolate or a Love It chocolate wasn't available, they really wouldn't lose too much business. Love It will lose business, not necessarily Cadbury or the retailer. So the thing with the brands is that they look at platform, being listed on a platform to be success. I read in an interview of the founder of Paperboat. So they celebrated when they got listed in Big Bazaar. They had a big party. And they didn't realize that was the biggest problem they were going to have, because the margins were so skewed against them. People justified by saying, I get visibility. But visibility cannot come at the cost of viability. You've got to make money. For most of the brands, they are not on QCOM. QCOM is completely on top of them.
Oh, okay. Fair. That's an interesting way of saying this. So, therefore, you're saying that for the smaller brands, the equation will always remain, in a balance against them. Whereas the larger brands will be able to possibly, like you rightly said, if the larger brand is not available and there's a problem in the system, it will get resolved immediately.
Absolutely.
A smaller brand will keep fighting.
Also, the large brands don't really care as much because they have their distribution infrastructure.
Yeah.
The smaller brands are the ones dependent on these platforms and retailers to do the business for them. So I remember when, again, I go back to modern trade, when Metro Cash and Carry created a few rate issues beginning 2000, it stopped supplying.
Yeah.
How, Henkel had the same issues, but Henkel couldn't dare not supply to Metro Cash and Carry because
Yeah.
Henkel, it was in Bangalore, and it was a good market for Henkel, but not a great market. You had to be available, and giving Metro being German, Henkel being German, we had that pressure also. So you had to supply. The large companies can afford to walk away.
Okay.
When a HUL sits in front of, say, Zepto or Blinkit or Instamart, they set as equals. Here, when you want trying to reach out as a new brand, trying to find the contact of the buyer to go list, you are definitely at a disadvantage in the negotiation. The large companies refuse to pay listing fees. Can the small brands even think of it? So it is like a double jeopardy, right? Because if you're small, you're disadvantaged. And because you're disadvantaged, you will remain small. So what do? You end up paying more, you get less, and you may continue to get less.
I think at the end of the day, Sharan, for a small brand, then it comes down to making wise choices. Because you're small, you're disadvantaged. Whatever you do, you will have to pay.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, if you're a small brand, you don't have the sort of media negotiation, etc. Even if you have to air your TVC, you will end up paying more than the large brands, right?
Absolutely.
So you will have to pay a premium. Now you have to decide on which end paying premium can take you closer to your next goal.
Absolutely.
This is a prioritization you need to cut. And if that's QCOM, be it. Then you don't complain.
Yep. See, if you know why you're getting into QCOM, you're perfectly fine. If you don't, if you think QCOM is going to be your business model, then you're finished.
This is almost like the D2C conversation that we had the other day. Yeah.
It is.
D2C is not a business model. It's a channel. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's go back to D2C only fully, right? What did D2C brands or the brands that call themselves D2C assume? They said the biggest moat for FMCG brands or consumer product brands itself was distribution.
Correct.
Now, digital is negating this moat. So it's everybody can do everything.
Correct.
So we can take on the Unilever, we can take on the Nestle, we can take on the Cadbury with the startup brands because distribution is now, it's even for everybody.
Correct.
Which has been the biggest problem, which hasn't been the case.
Yeah.
For all the noise that quick commerce is getting, they contribute less than 2% business. And if you don't have your own distribution and you're surviving on the quick commerce guy's platform and his capability, then it's not your business, nah.
You're funding their business.
You're funding their business and you're not even building yours. They own your customer data. They control your pricing. They have multiple ways of getting money out of you. Then what are you doing? Somebody asked me, does that mean there can be no new startups in the consumer space? So of course there can be. Just that don't start with these platforms or this as a shortcut. So two brands I'm a big fan of. One we've already discussed a lot, which is Atomberg, which has gone step by step, grown. And they've not taken too long. Huh? Less than 10, 15 years, they've grown to the size they are. And I think they're still continuing to do well and give the big guys a run for their money. The other brand is Heads Up for Tails.
Okay.
It was built by EBOs, exclusive brand outlets. It was built to they included other services of grooming. Then they launched their own product of dog food. But what are they saying? People need to come to my store for certain category sales, for grooming products, for things they want. The store experience, they can come. But Heads Up for Tails is also doing very well on quick commerce. It's not like they're shunning it.
Okay.
They are doing everything. But the fact that they built up their business, if quick commerce shuts down half today, it would not affect them too much. They would still get by.
Okay.
But for customers who want access via quick commerce, they are also available there. That is the distance that they maintain. And I think that's a brilliant way where they've expanded both ways, from grooming to food, from grooming products to actual dog grooming, bathing, and the way they train their staff. So if you take your dog to Heads Up for Tails for grooming, they don't muffle the dog.
Nice.
The people are trained to take care of the dog without a muffler.
Yeah.
But that's the brand that they create. That's the experience that they're creating. And as a pet owner, you would love taking your dog there because your dog is happy. People who are taking care of the dog as well. They're keeping it clean without smelling bad. What do you want? And therefore, this trust goes on to the products they make, the food that they make. That is how you build the brand and the business.
Okay.
Not just sitting on quick commerce.
Fair. So now you've given an example.
Yeah.
And I was actually about to ask this question that, usually when there is a new brand, they face these choices, right? Like you said, D2C beyond a point does not give you that much traction. QCOM, we are already talking about. How do you, it is unsustainable. And building traditional trade requires time, patience, money, investment, deep relationships, etc. So therefore, given this example that you shared, what will be the advice for a new brand, digital first brand, when they start off? What should they do?
See, it's about knowing. It's not about offline or online. You start digital because I assume you believe something is easily doable on digital. I would be safe to say it's easier to test for traction on digital platforms. It is about having control over your business. And if you are, like we said earlier, if you are trying to take a shortcut around distribution, you don't build your distribution moat, and you don't even own how the customer finds your experiences you, then you're working for somebody else's benefit. Distribution is expensive, but depending on others to build a distribution is even more expensive. So the other myth is that distribution has to be all around, everywhere, all at once. No. You can start where you are and build from there also. So you don't have to, it's not expensive. I'll tell you, I'll put it in simpler terms. It is less expensive than being on quick commerce today.
Okay. Fair. Tell me, one of the key things now, we are seeing quick commerce growing significantly.
Yes.
People having got the taste of convenience, people also choosing convenience. Right. So therefore, there seems to be a consumer behavior towards it. Right. Now, if that's happening, whatever you're suggesting, aren't you solving for today's scenario with yesterday's tools? And we'll be looking at what is the future of distribution.
Fair enough. So there were some big consultants when I was at Henkel, and Henkel wanted a market plan strategy, and they worked for a few months and they presented it back to us. I think I've said this before on the show.
Yeah.
Where they said modern trade would be 50% of India's FMCG by 2020. So the tomorrow is not that here. But I'll take this question a different way, right? Now, if modern trade hit a wall, so will quick commerce, and there are thresholds for it. And your same store growth isn't as sharp as it used to be a few months ago. Maybe that will correct. I'm not saying it's going to stop anytime soon, but it is not going to be the end game for Indian retail. But I'll answer the question that's behind it, right? Saying, if I'm going to be on quick commerce, if quick commerce is my reality, then how do I deal with quick commerce? For that, I go back to the point I made earlier to say, why must you be on quick commerce? And that will justify even the spends that you're going to make there. Because if you believe it is going to help you test your product, like we just discussed, and that's the best place for me to test your product, then that's perfectly fine. You are not looking to make money at this stage. It's an experimental launch that you're doing. Give them the margins that they want. You don't have to cry about it. Give them the margins, put down the marketing spend to get you the visibility. See if it's getting traction with your customers. Then you can move offline, perfectly fine. If you say, I get my trials offline, but my repeat happens on quick commerce, a lot like heads up for tails. So if you're going to do that, then you are driving traffic to the platform. You are at a better negotiation position with the quick commerce guys. Say, they're not coming to your platform to discover my brand. They are basically using it for convenience, and they're coming there looking for my brand. Therefore, you are at a better negotiating position with it. Now, then if you're looking to generate visibility for your brand, if you're a brand which does not have great visibility, but you've been in the market, you've proven your concept, and you want to use quick commerce as a means of visibility, then you need to have clear ROI plans. It is a marketing expense fee. That is how you will treat it. So Himalaya, when they launched, I think for the first 3-4 years, they survived just on merchandising visibility. Without TVC, nothing, just in-store merchandising is all they did. This is, again, early 2000s. So you will do the quick commerce equivalent of it to drive your visibility, which is fine. Now, if you're driving discovery to more customers, to move customers to your brand, then again, you're stuck. You got to, if this is the only way they're going to discover your brand, then you got to pay up. Basically, if this is going to be your business model of operation, quick commerce, then it's not your model, it's their model. You might as well sell your company to them or go work for them. You're easier that way. But if you know why you're going to be in quick commerce, you will know how to budget for the cost and how quickly you can get out of that also. Because you will be building your own distribution that you will control.
Fair. Now, I got the principles.
Mhm.
Let's test those principles with a specific example.
Okay.
Food brand,
Mhm.
25% gross margin. I know it's low, but for a food brand, but okay. 25% gross margin. Now they're negotiating with QCOM. QCOM has said that they'll charge 40% platform fee, which is obviously more than the margin that they've got. So they've got to pay from their pocket, right?
Right.
Now, it obviously no brainer that it does not make sense, but now the food brand has promised its investors and everybody that they'll get to whatever they're a crore now, they'll get to 10 crores, 15 crores, right? By ramping up distribution quickly in the next 12 months. Now, QCOM is a way of doing that. Everything else seems very distant, very difficult, etc., etc. Now, if you were in their place, how would you evaluate the trade-off?
Okay. So I'll put one caveat first to say
Mhm.
this myth of CAC and LTV in FMCG is complete nonsense.
I agree.
Your cost of acquisition is not, you're not acquiring a customer. FMCG is largely a repertoire category. You get a share of occasions is what you do.
Yeah.
And there is no lifetime value to measure against this. So you cannot sell at a loss. So if my margins are 25% and the retailer is going to ask 40% from me, it is an unviable business.
Correct.
Unless I have economies of scale and at a future date. If they say, when I do my 50 crores, I break even, then does my math add up then? It's okay. At 50 crores also, I will still be at a loss. I probably have to do 120 crores to break even on a 40% margin with quick commerce. Do I want to do that 120 crores on quick commerce to even break even? And how long is that going to take me? It doesn't look like a viable plan for me. However, if the 100 crores is the number and it is not necessarily on quick commerce, it doesn't have to be as slow. You can activate your offline distribution a lot faster and get this going, because the only stumbling block or the initial pause you'll have is until you have a proof of concept.
Correct.
The moment you have your concept proven, then you are free to go as many places as you want and distribute. You need to be nimble enough to go distribute, have your distributor agreements in place and run as fast as you can. But hitting 100 crores in a matter of 2 to 3 years, I don't think is a challenge. If you have a good product that's concept proven, you can hit the 100 crores. But 25% for a food brand is pretty abysmal, no?
It is. It is. Sure. Okay. And would you also say, for example, suppose the food brand is clear that the product is wonderful, they just want consumers to try it once, right? Now, QCOM could also give them, at obviously a loss, great sampling.
Absolutely. If that is the intent, if you're clear that quick commerce is going to be my trial and is not going to be the bread and butter of my business, perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I'm even okay giving it for free to get sampling done, because of food product, and you and I have been in the food business and nothing works like sampling does.
Yeah. Yeah. So once the consumers have consumed it, hopefully they'll come back, ask for the product, and then you can charge.
Yeah. Then you can always negotiate. But the thing with retailers is that once you agree on a certain margin, right, budging it becomes extremely difficult. So you got to be very careful of the margins you agree. That's why I said I'd rather give it away for free and even pay them to sample than agree on a lesser margin with them.
Fair. So there is lots of things at play. Obviously, you
Mhm.
said that CAC versus an LTV, etc., does not make sense, especially in FMCG business.
Right.
And then there is this whole short-term, long-term thinking that we spoke about. Okay,
Hmm.
fair. Now, practical question. Today's day and age, digital brand, how do you balance long-term and short-term thinking?
How do you mean?
It is as in you have some short-term objectives. You promised it to your investors. You promised it to yourself. You promised it to your team. You know what is right for the business in the long term, but there's no strategy without tactical play and vice versa. So therefore, what do you do?
See, you got to know what defines success for you. Right. See, you got to know what defines success for you. If it's valuation, unicorns, it's okay. If that's success for you, go after it. But is
Mhm.
that a sustainable business for you?
Hmm.
Because under investor pressure, if you're doing it for the investors, you're rarely doing it for the consumers because the interests are largely tangential in today's time. Doesn't have to be, but it's seeming to be. And you saw Mama, the going in for IPO. I'm not disparaging them. It's pretty well documented in the press because they were going for IPO. They had to demonstrate higher offline sales, and they just dumped stock on distributors. And distributors' money went for a toss. Stock didn't move, and the SKUs that were working online weren't the SKUs working offline. So that's what happens. So is that really business that you want to build? I'm sure they're taking corrective action now. But if you look at long-term, short-term, long-term, short-term, I think all philosophy in the world says delayed gratification is what works. So yes, you must survive in the short term. Therefore, don't go sacrifice your margins. Make money, even if you're making lesser sales. Make money out of it. But for the long term, build your own infrastructure for the long term. That is what I would always say. Because if the short term is also leads to you losing money, then what's the problem? You need to own your distribution, and you must recognize that the platforms are just the tools. Your brand is actually the business that you're building. You just need to focus on that.
Well said. Well said. So now that, Sharan, you created sufficient scare, you've given some amount of direction. Now, if there is a founder who is listening to this podcast and they are currently fully committed to QCOM, now what will be your advice to them for the next 2 months, 3 months, 60-day, 90-day plan of trying to build a lesser dependence on QCOM and building for the long term? What will be your advice to them?
I would say get started on building an offline distribution. It sounds more intimidating than it should be because you're always thinking the large number of stores and this, that. No. If you can distribute into 100, 150 stores in your city, wherever you are, start wherever you are. It's okay to start small. Go stand in the store to understand how offtake for your brand happens and what you need to do to drive offtake. And we've said this before, it's a brand's job to not just sell to the shelf, but also off the shelf.
Yeah.
And do it fast. This is the only three things I will say. Because if you can do it now, do it wherever you are and just do it right. And you see, and you find you will build automatically, you will build traction. It is the fear of getting started on offline distribution which is holding people back.
Sure. So
Supporting
getting started.
salesmen, yeah, distributors, margins, all that sounds very scary because of the sheer number of people you have to handle. But it's a lot simpler than it sounds.
Okay. Okay. Now, I know this is slightly off the track, but you've sufficiently bashed QCOM today. If all goes well, hopefully we will not be sued by any of the QCOM players. And let me add a disclaimer here. So all views expressed are, purely subjected to Sharan's own judgment.
So much for teamwork.
I know. Take one for the team. So if there was a QCOM marketer or a strategist on this show, how do you think they would respond to whatever we have said thus far? What will be their argument?
They would agree with me in the sense that about how they operate, but they would say, we built this so that you get addicted to us. Be it consumer, be it the brand supplying to me. I'm doing a good job of what I'm doing so that you get addicted to me. You can't let go of me.
Correct. That's true.
It's a
That's
drug.
true. So that means they're solving a relevant problem, but good one. Good one. So I just hope that we are able to get one of the QCOM guys, maybe however, in one of the later episodes. And I'd pay to be on the ringside and see both of you battle it out in
You
the
should
ring.
get them to watch or listen to this episode and then come on to the show.
I know. They'll know who to back.
Thank you for listening to CoBB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharan Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net.